right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We talk every night with you, all the big topics in Pittsburgh and national sports, whatever you prefer. All you have to do to get involved in this program is call 412-575-2600. You know that number by now. It's the number of the Bordas & Bordas hotline. You can also hit us up on Twitter, at KDPomp, at Chris Mueller, PGH, as we get set for spring training. It's officially underway. Optimism everywhere. Everyone's 0-0, so there are issues. There always are issues. But this year, the Pirate win total, I noticed, Chris, if you look around, is up from what it was last year. Not a lot, and certainly not to be competitive enough to compete with any team in the National League. However, there are issues. You want to see guys develop, but the number one thing right now is Brian Reynolds. I've been saying all along, I think they should sign him, especially when I hear some of these numbers, like which are between 16 and 18 million a year. Quite frankly, he's 28. Do I expect him to be the same player at age 34 as he is now? No. But it's a commitment that they need to make because they need somebody like that in their outfield right now. And there is no sin spending money, especially if it's 16 to 8 million. That's below market value for guys, I think, right now similar to him in not only age, but average RBI and all the metrics that you may look at.
I have a couple questions for you, Bob, to start that off, this discussion. Do you think we have already seen the best season production-wise of Brian Reynolds' career, given where he is age-wise?
No.
Okay, that's fine. That's your opinion. That stands with what you said. Do you think that he will be a $16 to $18 million player when he's 32 or 33?
It's irrelevant because I don't care. It's their money. They have to spend it at some point, so spend it.
Oh, no, I get that argument, but I guess this makes me feel like shades of the Chris Archer trade, which I fully supported at the time and was rah-rah for. Yeah, go for it. Show you're in the mix. If you do that with Brian Reynolds and pay him what he wants, which is like 130 to 135 over whatever it would be, 8 years, yeah, you are getting below market value in terms of the annual salary that he's going to make. But it just makes me wonder if you'd be doing it for the hollow reason of saying, ooh, look, we're finally in the mix in baseball. I'd much rather they try to get a very, I'm not even team friendly. I don't even care about that. Try to get some sort of deal done with O'Neal Cruz that locks him up here for a long time. I actually don't think that there's some great need on the Pirates' part or that it would even be wise right now to give Brian Reynolds a contract extension. He shouldn't take some lowball offer from the team that's super team friendly, and they shouldn't feel an urgency to lock him up to anything.
The only thing I'll say about that is this, Chris. And while I agree that O'Neal Cruz is somebody that's a low-risk signing, quite frankly, because it eats up arbitration years and it'll be affordable, just like Ke'Bryan Hayes was. But you get to a point where, and I guess this is part of me, because I'm going through this as someone who watches them every night like a lot of fans do. If you trade Brian Reynolds, again, what are you saying? How many years is it going to be before this team actually competes for something? To me, he's a part of what, if Ke'Bryan Hayes does what he's supposed to do, if Cruz turns out, Reynolds is a big part of this, given some of the young pitchers. If this all starts to, go in the right direction in the next year or two, the last thing I want to think of is trading him at some point and, again, starting over, so to speak. We've gone through so many of these kinds of trades. I get your Archer comparison, but I think this is a little bit different. I still think his best baseball is yet to come, and I want him to be part of whatever happens here in the next 2 to 3 years.
If they're within a couple games of a wild card spot this year as like a 500 team, which if they're 500 at the trade deadline, they will be within a couple games of the wild card spot unless things are really highly unusual in baseball, then yeah, I think it's going to be a tough look if they trade him instead of trying to add pieces. But you talk about him being a part of what they're trying to build here. Let's be honest. 2 straight years of 100 losses. They were on pace for like closer to 110 losses in the COVID-shortened season. He hasn't been a part of much of anything. I think like the sort of bigger overarching angle, I guess, if you want to call it that, to the Brian Reynolds drama, if you want to call it that, Bob, is what exactly has Ben Cherington done here in his time on the job? I think the argument can be made he had a much more bare cupboard to work with than Neil Huntington did. It was an even worse situation than Huntington took over from Dave Littlefield as far as existing talent, but he's done virtually nothing with it, and we're talking about some win projections that have them being like 71 and 91 and trying to put lipstick on a pig here and say that's progress. It really isn't. I think it's going to be very interesting what Bob Nutting thinks about things if and when the Pirates are kind of languishing and they're a clear seller at the deadline and Reynolds is good. Wouldn't it behoove him, Bob, to say, do I have the right guy for the job as my GM?
Yeah, I mean, that's a legitimate question. Here's the thing I'll say about signing Reynolds, though. If what I think is going to happen, he'll get a little bit better. Now, I still know they have 2 more years, so there's no urgency to do anything right now. They can let this year go. As I'm up against the break, so I want to get to it as fast as I can. But I will say, if you sign him at $16.8 million, and he's in 3 years from now still a very good player, you still could trade him if that's the case. You could do a lot of things with that because that's a franchise-friendly type of contract, no matter who you're talking about in MLB. We're going to take a break. We'll take it. Come back with your phone calls at 412-575-2600 right here live. Pittsburgh CW and 93.7 The Fan.